You never saw the gunman?
At that time, no.
But you know who did it?
Yeah, I know them.
The attempted assassination of Bob Marley in 1976 has been shrouded in conspiracy since gunmen stormed the reggae star's home on December 3rd.
Every government upon the face of this earth today is illegal.
Who pulled the trigger?
All this has got escalated.
Was there outside interference?
Well, is there some financial involvement, say, from the Cubans to your government?
And what was the overall effect on the world at the time? Using real footage, this is the story of Bob Marley's 1976. August 6th, 1962. The island of Jamaica becomes an independent nation, making it the first sovereign English-speaking country in the Caribbean.
Bringing to represent the Queen, Princess Margaret. Independence was to have a royal greeting.
But by 1963, the two main political parties were paying off members of the rude boy subculture to engage in turf warfare with political rivals. The Jamaican Labour Party, known as the JLP, and the People's National Party, known as the PNP, had fought for control of the island for years, and the rivalry encouraged urban warfare in Kingston. Each party built separate garrison communities, and by the 1966 election, gunfights became common, bombings occurred, and police were routinely shot at. This resulted in more than 500 people injured, 20 people dead, and 500 people arrested during police raids. Each side believed that the other was controlled by foreign elements. The JLP was said to be backed by the American CIA, while the PNP was said to have been backed by the Soviet Union and Cuba.
Well, is there some financial involvement, say, from the Cubans to your government and from the Americans to the opposition?
No. Well, I can't speak for the Americans with the opposition. There's no financial involvement between the Cubans and us, none whatsoever.
The Cubans are investing here, though. They're like building a school.
Well, that really was a gesture of solidarity. It's very much there's a new thing emerging in the Third World, where Third World countries often do things for each other on a cooperative basis.
Sporadic political violence evolved into outright urban warfare after a series of violent outbursts. By 1974, the PNP openly pledged their support to the principles of democratic socialism. PNP candidate Michael Manley publicly praised Fidel Castro, so the JLP, led by Edward Seaga, solidified itself as a right-wing counter to the emerging leftism. At this point, the CIA began supplying weapons to JLP vigilantes. In the next 2 years, more than 100 people had been murdered during the conflict, and political parties began forming paramilitary divisions. Things were escalating in Jamaica. And it was this same year, 1976, when an armed group of JLP gunmen stormed the residence of Bob Marley. But why were the JLP targeting the international music icon? Bob rose to fame in the 1970s, thanks to the success of his band, The Wailers, which he formed alongside Bunny O'Reilly Livingston and Peter McIntosh. Marley was not in favor of politics, but was seen as a political figure through his lyrics. In turn, it gave the Jamaican people a sense of identity and popularized the Rastafarian religion during the 1970s. Reggae, a blend of Jamaican music with blues and rhythm, quickly became a vehicle for social protests and political messages. Not only did it identify with the Rastafarians, but mostly people in poverty and unfavorable circumstances, which was the majority of the population.
Music's pretty important.
Yeah, in a field like that, reggae music.
Reggae music's pretty important. But you're saying that the reggae music helps you to come to a peace truce.
Yeah.
Marley wanted change, equality, and to end their suffering. Though Bob never directly said it, he knew as well as anyone that in order to accomplish his goal, he must work with politicians that have the power to make such changes. A general election was due in Jamaica in 1976.
The Manley motorcade moves on, leaving these villagers here to decide, like people all over Jamaica, whether the Labour Party's capitalist free enterprise approach or the PNP's brand of democratic socialism is the answer to Jamaica's problems.
But that year, there was an escalation in pre-existing political conflict between left-wing PNP supporters and the pro-US opposition JLP. A state of emergency was declared in June. In a broadcast, Prime Minister Michael Manley said that law enforcement agencies had been ordered to lock up and keep locked up all persons who endanger public safety. In October, the Ministry of Culture planned a free concert to bring people together to diffuse tension and asked Marley to participate. Marley was sympathetic, having played the 1975 Wonder Dream concert. He made several conditions to reduce the apparent link to the PNP, including changing the venue from Jamaica House to National Heroes Park. He wrote the cheery Smile Jamaica as a theme song. Although Marley had declared himself politically neutral, and some of his earlier songs had been banned by the government, the JLP now saw his participation as an endorsement of the PNP. Bob's ties to the event made his home a target for JLP vigilantes. At 8:30 p.m. on December 3, 1976, 2 days before the Smile Jamaica concert, 7 men armed with guns raided Marley's house at 56 Hope Road. The gunmen immediately shot Marley's wife, Rita, in the head, then burst into the studio with weapons blazing, as Marley and his band were on break from rehearsal for the Smile Jamaica concert. The gunmen shot Marley in the arm, while his manager, Don Taylor, was shot in the leg and torso. Band employee Louise Griffiths took a bullet to the torso as well, but dramatically, there were no fatalities.
Reggae star Bob Marley, Rita Marley, and the manager of the Wailers, Don Taylor, are now patients in the University Hospital after receiving gunshot wounds during a shooting incident which took place at Marley's home at 56 Hope Road.
It was reported that Rita survived being shot in the head as her densely woven dreadlocks minimized the damage. Either by good fortune or poor aim, the bullet aimed at Marley skidded off his chest, lodging in his arm. Bob later described a dream he had 2 weeks prior to the shooting, where a barrage of bullets were coming at him, and he heard a voice saying, "Stand up, stand still." It was these actions that maybe saved his life.
What happened is that the night before, about 3 nights before that, I was living at a place called Bullby, you know? And I went home about 3 o'clock in the morning and get some sleep. And then I was in a lot of gunshot, you know? That was a dream. I was in a barrage, a gunshot, but when it all over, you know, it's like me never really get no shot. But me see my mother get shot. You know, the vision show my mother get shot in her head. And what happened is that the vision said, "Don't run." You know, it's like, you know, all of this gunshot is like something that the vision said, "Don't run, stand up." So when the gunshot started firing on Hope Road, the first thing come back to my mind was the vision. And all I could remember is that the vision said, "Don't run." And so me have to stand up, you know. And, you know, them fire until it was tired of fire, and then two is not really a lawful gun battle.
But who were the men that shot Bob Marley?
You never saw the gunman?
Well, at that time, no.
But you know who did it?
Yeah, I know that.
Timothy White, in his Marley biography, claimed that information he received from JLP and PNP officials, as well as U.S. law enforcement officials, led him to believe that Carl Baya Mitchell, a JLP gunman, was contracted by the CIA to organize the Marley shooting.
Every law is illegal.
Every government upon the face of this earth today is illegal.
And that Lester Koch, aka Jim Brown, led the charge on Hope Road. Don Taylor, Marley's manager, claimed that both he and Marley were present at the ghetto court, in which the gunmen who shot Marley were tried and executed. It was the Kingston ghettos who passed judgment on the men who had almost taken the life of their hero and Jamaica's greatest icon. Despite Marley's pleas for mercy, 2 of the shooters were hanged, whilst the others were shot. According to Don Taylor's autobiography published years later, before one of the shooters was killed, he claimed that the job was done for the CIA in exchange for cocaine and guns, a claim which has remained unfounded to this day. Despite the shooting, Marley promised to perform one song "War" at the Smile Jamaica concert 2 days later. The crowd that gathered in National Heroes Park were unsure whether he would turn up until the moment he arrived at the venue. While his injured arm prevented him playing guitar, Marley sang for 90 minutes, and rolled up his sleeve at one point to show the crowd his wound, saying, "Bang, bang, I'm okay." Not long after the show, Marley left Jamaica for the Bahamas and eventually went to England. Michael Manley won his re-election just over a week later. From the relative safety of London, Marley mused about the Smile Jamaica concert. "It's hard not to get involved, but they can't get me involved in politics," Marley told The Guardian in 1977. "I'm a Rastaman, not a politician." It was in England where he recorded the albums Exodus in 1977 and Kaya in 1978. That year, Marley returned to Jamaica and performed at another political concert, the One Love Peace concert, again in an effort to calm warring parties. The event was immortalized by this image. It shows Marley joining the hands of JLP leader Edward Seaga and PNP Prime Minister Michael Manley. 32,000 Jamaicans in attendance smiled and cheered, but it would be a short-lived peace between the politicians. In July 1977, Marley was diagnosed with a type of malignant melanoma under his right toe. The first doctor that he consulted thought that the lesion was a soccer injury, as Marley was a huge fan of the game. After it began to look worse, Marley consulted another doctor who biopsied the spot and discovered that it was melanoma. The recommendation was to amputate his toe, but Marley chose to have excision surgery instead, in which the surgeon removed the nail and surrounding tissue. Marley had no further treatment and did well until one day in 1980, where he collapsed while on a jog through Central Park in New York City. He was rushed to hospital, and tests revealed that the melanoma had spread to his brain, lungs, and stomach. He refused his doctor's treatment plan and went to Germany to try alternative treatments, including exercise, ozone injections, and vitamins. Marley's condition continued to worsen, and he chartered a plane to return to Jamaica. While in flight, his condition became critical, and the plane did an emergency landing in Miami where Marley passed away. He never made it back to his beloved Jamaica. Conspiracy theories surrounding Marley's death were rife. Some speculated that the CIA were involved in his demise. One such theory, popular in 2017, claimed a CIA agent made a deathbed confession that he indeed killed Bob Marley. In an article posted by YourNewsWire.com, 79-year-old Bill Oxley, who worked as an operative with top-level security clearance, claimed that he committed 17 assassinations for the American government between 1964 and 1985. It was written that Bill Oxley visited the reggae legend by posing as a famous photographer from the New York Times in order to gain access to Bob Marley during his Blue Mountains retreat. He gave him a pair of Converse All-Stars laced with a needle containing cancer viruses and bacteria. When Bob Marley tried on the shoe, he screamed when the needle inside the shoe pierced his skin, and that was it. Despite its hilarity, this conspiracy theory gained traction until fact-checkers unveiled that no agent called Bill Oxley ever existed. But, however ridiculous this may seem, we can't let it distract us from the assassination attempt on Marley's life in 1976, where CIA involvement has never been confirmed or disproved. They buried Bob Marley on 21st May, 1981, at 9 Mile, the village where, 36 years earlier, he had been born. His heavy bronze coffin was carried to the top of the highest hill in the village and placed in a temporary mausoleum painted in the colors of red, green, and gold. Alongside Marley's embalmed corpse, the casket contained his red Gibson Les Paul guitar, a Bible opened at Psalm 23, and a stalk of ganja placed there by his widow, Rita, at the end of the funeral ceremony earlier in the day. On the day before the funeral, the coffin was placed on lit de parade, allowing the public, an estimated 100,000 people, to file past and get a final glance of their icon. Marley's long locks had been replaced with a wig as his own hair had been lost during cancer treatment in New York, Miami, Mexico, and finally the Bavarian clinic of Dr. Joseph Issels, following the diagnosis of a malignant melanoma 4 years earlier. The Rastafarians told the mourning people that there was no reason to grieve as death meant nothing. Bob had not gone anywhere. He was still among us. The day of the funeral began with an hour-long service for family and close friends at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church of the Holy Trinity, presided over by His Eminence Abuna Yesahak, the church's archbishop in the Western Hemisphere, who had baptized Marley in New York the previous November, just after his last triumphal concerts at Madison Square Garden. Bob's baptismal name was Berhane Selassie, Light of the Trinity. At the culmination of the service, his coffin was taken to the National Arena, where the 6,000-strong congregation were assembling along with reporters from around the world. He was then taken to his final resting place at 9 Mile. If you found this video informative, please subscribe to Crime Collated so you never miss an episode.